Hey everybody, and welcome to another video. My name is Scary Spikes, and today I'm bringing you the takeoff and landing guide for the FA-26B, so I hope you enjoy it. Let's go ahead and roll the intro and get started. Alrighty, pilots, let's go ahead and learn how to take off in the FA-26B. It's a pretty simple process, so just follow along and you'll be just fine. Let's go ahead and put our visor on and get ready to fly. Okay, so I assume you already know how to cold start the aircraft. If you don't know that, make sure to watch my other video. There's a couple things that I talk about there that are very important. One, of course, is learning how to completely cold start all of the different systems on the aircraft. I'm going to go ahead and link that video in the top right-hand corner of the screen there. So do make sure to go check that out. And if you're back from that video, then thank you very much for watching. And let's go ahead and get started and get off the ground here. So a few very, very simple things. First and foremost, we need to configure the aircraft for takeoff. That, of course, includes the cold start, which we have done. I just forgot to turn the APU off there, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And now for the MFDs, I like to configure them in such a way where I have the nav screen on the right hand side and the comm screen on the left hand side. We do need to configure our flaps as well for takeoff. That's pretty easy. Just go ahead and bring the flaps lever down to 1, and then we're pretty much good to go. Now, if you don't see what I see here and you'd like to get this kind of display right here, this is called the HMIX, the helmet mounted queuing system. If I turn this off, as you can see, it's not there, but also if it's turned on and my visor is up, then I'm not going to see it either. So you can go ahead and bring one of your touch controllers to the side of your headset or your head and click the trigger, or you can click this button here for the visor and that will bring it down. Also good for nice and sunny days as we have today. Okay, other than that, all we really need to do is just contact ATC to get clearance for taxi and takeoff. So that's pretty simple. I'm going to go ahead and go over to the comms panel. From the home menu, it's going to be over here on the sort of second from the bottom left OSB. We're going to click on that. We're going to click on ATC. And then we have some choices of which airbase to contact. We're currently at this one right here, and generally speaking, this option here will be the closest one to you. But if you've already contacted another airbase previously and you'd like to take off or land at that airbase, then you can use the last contacted method there. I'm gonna go ahead and choose this one here, and then we're gonna ask for takeoff and taxi permission by clicking the takeoff button.
Copy. Taxi to runway 20.
All right, roger, taxi to runway 20. And as you can see, we do have a nice little waypoint here. We're pretty much zoomed in as far as it'll go here, but it'll tell you we can just go straight ahead and go left there. It's not really mandatory, but if you're an RPer, that could be something for you. The only other thing left to do is we just need to remove our wheel locks by flicking that switch there. Just confirm that your engines are both spooled up, your APU is off, and your canopy is all the way down, and that your flaps are set to 1. And at this point, we are ready for takeoff. We're going to add just a little tiny bit of thrust, and we're going to go ahead and grab the throttle and the stick. Just remember, the stick on your right touch controller, your rudder and your nose wheel steering is going to be basically the left and right twist. You can also have rudder pedals, so if you have physical rudder pedals, you can certainly configure those. And be mindful as you're taxiing out, not to taxi as quickly as I am, especially when you're on a multiplayer server. You do want to make sure...
Bravo 1-1, tower, clear for takeoff at runway 20.
Clear for takeoff, runway 20, Bravo 1-1. You do want to make sure that the runway and the taxiways are clear. Also note that, as you can see on the HUD there, I'm using some very aggressive braking maneuvers. The brake is going to be on the left-hand trigger, so on your left touch controller, you're going to have your brakes on that. So just something to keep in mind. You want to use your nose wheel steering or your left and right twist on your stick to get lined up. It doesn't have to be perfect. We're pretty much in the center here. One of the things that you'll notice is we have a little flight path indicator or flight path marker right there. That's going to be right at the end, right in the middle of the screen. You do want to make sure that you have that lined up pretty much right to the end of the runway in the center line. Other than that, you don't have to be perfectly lined up. The next thing we're going to do is just go ahead and put it up to full throttle into afterburner, but we're going to go ahead and hold on to the brake, as you can see there. Once we have the engine spool up a little bit, we'll go ahead and let go of the brake, and at about 220 to 250 knots, depending on how loaded you are, you're going to start gently bringing your nose up with the stick, and once we have a positive climb, we're going to go ahead and bring our landing gear up, and then a few seconds later, we'll be bringing our flaps up as well, and then leveling out at our cruising altitude, whatever that might be. So let's go ahead and cue the Top Gun music and do this thing. I lied, I can't use Top Gun music, it's copyrighted. But I can sing it for you. No, I'm not going to do that. Alright, so here we go. We're getting up to pretty close to speed here. We're going to start gently bringing the nose back. Our thrust to weight ratio is pretty good. If you guys hear fire trucks in the background, I do apologize. Positive rate, we're going to go ahead and bring that up while we're keeping about a 10-degree climb here. That's pretty healthy. And then a few seconds later, go ahead and bring up our flaps as we salute the boys on the carrier there on the way out. So that's it. That's all it takes to take off. Now let's go ahead and see how we prepare for landing. And we're going to be landing at the same airfield over there. So let's just go ahead and jump into that. Alright, so let's go ahead and land this thing. It's really quite simple. I'm going to explain a few things. I am going to be talking about the ILS as well. For the purposes of this video, we're going to try to do pretty much mostly everything visually, and I'm going to show you a few tips and tricks on how to get that done. But we're currently just making a little turn around the island here. We've got our autopilot engaged on altitude hold mode, so we're holding about just a little over 3,000 feet, and this will give me a little bit of time to talk to you about preparing the aircraft for landing. So the very first thing that we need to do is check that our MFDs are set to the appropriate pages. Now, this isn't a must, but for me, I really like having the nav display on the right and the comms display on the left with ATC selected. If you are in the current session and you've taken off in the current session from a particular airbase and you want to get back in touch with them to land there, you can use the last contact, but I'm going to go ahead and select these guys here, and we're just simply going to request landing.
Bravo 1-1, tower, copy. Flight heading 059. Expect runway 02 right.
Alright, 05902 right. Perfect. So one way that you can kind of see ahead of time, if you're not able to see, as you can see right there, that is the place where we're going to be landing. But there's a lot of hills there, and I'm not really sure which way is going to be the best way to approach. So let's go ahead and just straighten the aircraft out here and slow it down a little bit. So in preparation for landing, I do want to bring the speed down to about a quarter and then bring the flaps down to 1. And as we're getting lined up for the runway there, which probably won't take too long, I do want to make my nav screen the SOI, or the sensor of interest. Grab the right stick and use the joystick on top to navigate to the little green line and basically just zoom in. And yeah, we can see that we're basically having the airport facing out. Appears to be basically perpendicular to us at this point. So we're going to zoom back out. We're going to go ahead and reset this, and I'm going to start making our way, turning left towards the airport there. Now again, most of this is going to be visual, but as we start to approach and slow down, I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about essentially the ILS system, because the ILS system can be quite important, especially if the weather is not very good. The weather's pretty good today, but I'm going to let you know what the ILS system is about, and maybe we'll do a more in-depth guide in the future. So we'll go ahead and just start descending a little bit. We'll descend at about maybe 2.5 to 3 degrees. And we'll start basically lining up a little bit more with the runway here as we talk about this. There we go. Okay, and I'm going to reduce speed just a little bit more. That should be pretty good there with the flaps down. Okay, so essentially, here, let's actually go ahead and just turn on the autopilot for a second. Essentially, what we're going to see here is this is your ILS display, and you're going to have two different things that you're looking for on the ILS. The first one is going to be a vertical line that you want to put your aircraft on top of, which is going to be that one there. That will come to life as soon as we get permission to land, which should be very soon. And that's going to tell you whether your aircraft is to the left or to the right of the center line. And if you're right on top, if your aircraft is right on top of that line, that means you're pretty much lined up with the center line. And the other thing we're going to be looking for is going to be the glide slope, which will be a horizontal line, which will be coming up, and you want to basically keep that right where your aircraft is, and that'll keep you on a nice even descent path to get you down to the runway.
1-1, tower, cleared to land at runway 02 right.
Okay, clear to land 02 right. Now we're going to do this pretty much all visually. You can go ahead and drop your gear as soon as you have permission to land. And essentially what you want to do is you want to try to keep that little flight path marker there that looks like a little airplane. You want to try to keep that lined up with basically the threshold of the runway. And once you do get clearance to land, you'll notice that the ILS is coming to life as well. And one thing that you'll see is that this is basically the glide slope indicator here. So we're very close to being on glide slope. And following the flight path marker can also help you to stay on glide slope, as can the little display just to the left of the HUD, this guy right here. We are a little bit high right now, but that's okay. We're just going to go ahead and manage our speed. We're about 240 knots. That's not bad. I am going to reduce that a little bit more, and we're going to continue to keep that flight path marker pretty much at the threshold of the runway. Once we get to the runway and we're just about to touch down, we're going to flare up by bringing the nose up just a little bit and aiming the flight path marker down the center line, pretty much all the way at the other end of the runway. So here we go, about 200 knots. That's a really good approach speed. And there we are, pretty much centered up here. We're going to go a little to the left. And we're going to start our flare, nice and slow. Flight path marker to the end, and there we go. Nice soft landing. And then we're going to start to apply our brakes and use the rudder / nose wheel steering, or the twist on your stick, to keep everything in the center.
Follow the taxi path to your parking area.
Alright, then we can zoom in. We can see that this is going to be our way to the parking area here, so we can give it a tiny little bit of throttle as we taxi. Just make sure that you hold your left hand on the throttle just in case you need to engage the brakes. And we're going to go ahead and apply a little bit of those brakes and just start to turn. Now, I think it goes without saying that you don't really need to ask for permission to take off or land or anything like that. Generally speaking, especially if you're just playing by yourself, I think that's pretty much fine. You can just kind of go and do whatever you like and whatever makes you happy. But do keep in mind that it's definitely a very nice courtesy to others if you're playing multiplayer, since the latest version of VTOL VR does now support native multiplayer. And so always a good thing to get on the comms and just let other people in the area know that you're going to be taking off or landing, and just so that you avoid any accidents.
Ready to rearm and refuel.
Alright, there we go. Once we get into the hangar, we want to bring our thrust all the way down. We want to make sure that our wheel locks are engaged. We want to bring our flaps back up to 0. We want to basically disengage all of our engines, so put these up and flick these down. And for the purposes of this video, we're also going to bring up the canopy, and we are going to keep the battery on just for now. We can go back on the home menu here, but we're going to stay on the ATC menu here because we're going to click on cancel and go all the way back until we can see the types of different people we can talk to. We're going to go ahead and click on ground, and then we're going to go ahead and just click on request rearm. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. That'll do it for me for today. If you found this video helpful and enjoyable, please make sure to let me and YouTube know by dropping a like down below. And of course, becoming a subscriber with notifications turned on so that you don't miss any of my future videos to come. Now, if you want to help me out a little bit more directly, you can of course utilize one of the links down in the description below to become a patron or a channel member right here on YouTube. And thank you so very much for all of those who have already done so and have supported me directly. There's also a super thanks button under the video if you found this particularly helpful and just want to show your appreciation by buying me a cup of coffee. Again, thanks very much for watching, everybody, and I hope to see you in the next video.